Hey everyone, I'm starting the live video. This is Dr. Michelle Burton, CEO over at Rising Communities, and we're going to celebrate doulas for Women History Month with a fantastic interview. So I need to find my guest.
I don't know if anyone's in here yet.
I don't know, so I'm talking.
Yeah. I think it tells, oh, okay, yeah, see, there's someone who just joined.
Welcome, welcome.
Okay.
Glad to see you all joining. Let me find my guest and we can get started. Let's see. There we go.
Okay, you're good.
All right.
Yeah. Tell me if you need.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Dr. Michelle Burton, CEO over at Rising Communities. And we are celebrating Women's History Month with a fantastic interview with a phenomenal doula. And let me just check here. Here. All right. And all right. Miss Andrea, are you with us? All right, let's see. You guys are going to bear with me. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I'm figuring it out. Let's see. All right, so, I believe we're supposed to have a split screen with you, Andrea. I'm not quite sure how to get you in. I think I followed my directions. So let's figure this out. I think I was supposed to not invite you. It says to invite you, which I did, but your directions say that you have to request to join. And let me see. And your video will appear. Request to join will appear on the screen. I'm not seeing a request to join. Can you accept my request to join? Okay. I'm not sure where that is. It says it's going to appear on the screen, but I don't see I don't see anything coming up to accept a request.
I think just shoot to that. Maybe just shoot to that.
Yeah. Not sure where that notification is. You're going to log out and come back in. Thank you. Let's try that.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for your patience. Clearly, I have not joined the 21st century yet. Today is one of my test cases to see if I can actually become a part of the social community. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate the love. I'm going to need some more of that to get through this next hour. So Andrea's going to log out and come back in, and I'm going to find something's going to pop up and tell me to let her in.
Did you invite her?
Let's see.
Did you invite her?
I did invite her, and that version didn't work. So
Okay.
she has to request to join in order for the screen to split, and then we see each other.
Okay.
So, all right. We are learning new things. I am all about learning new things. So I'm looking. Let's see if she sent it. View request. I see something that says view request. Awesome. And I am accepting. And then I should see, oh my goodness, it's happening. Oh my goodness, I did it. Yes.
it.
Thank you so much.
Now I can't see
Oh, you can't see me?
you,
Well, I can
but
see you.
I cannot see you. Okay,
You
perfect. I
can
guess
hear
that's all
me.
that matters.
You can
Let's
hear me.
see. I can
Okay.
hear you. I can hear you. I'm gonna log into my other page just to see
All
if we're showing up
right.
good. Hold on one second. Let's
Okay.
see. Yes, we're both showing up. So even though I can't see you,
All
we're
right.
both showing
I
up.
love it. I love it. We're going to get this down. I'm going to be an
Okay.
expert by next year. I'm going to be giving tutorials. I'm going to have a whole class and I'm going to teach it. And probably not, but
One thing at a time.
baby
One thing at a
steps.
time.
And it's definitely baby steps for me.
Baby steps.
Yeah. So,
Literally, baby
you and I are
steps.
meeting for the first time. So, first let me just
Yeah.
say, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Am I saying your name right? Is it Andrea? Andrea,
Andrea.
thank you. So I wanted to
Mhm.
clarify that. I think I did several
Yeah.
times, but I got so stressed out about this, I completely forgot what they told me. So, Andrea,
Okay, don't.
Andrea, thank you.
Listen, you're in the ballpark. You're in the ballpark.
So
All
thank you
good.
so much for agreeing to be with us. We are
Yeah.
extremely excited to celebrate Women's History Month this year.
Me as
Yes.
well.
And so I had the opportunity to go to a really powerful event last week in the West Adams district that was lifting up.
I was
Yes.
there.
Okay. See? And I didn't get to
Mhm.
connect with you then. So we were at the same place.
No, it was so
Oh
many
my
beautiful people.
gosh.
It was
It
so
was
many people.
wonderful,
It was so
wonderful.
beautiful.
So, that
Mhm.
inspired my team, in particular, Miroslava. Thank you, Mira, for putting this together for us to have this interview in honor of Women's History Month and continue to champion the importance of doulas. And so that's what we really
Mhm.
want to talk about today. So, first, let's just hear a little bit about you, Andrea, and how did you come into the world of being a doula, and why is that important to you?
Yeah. Um, well, first, I've been practicing now for 8 years. I'm a second generation birth worker. So this has been a part of my life for a long time. Um, Doula is a very new term, just for folks out there. It's now we know what it is by the word, but that's not necessarily what we went by. So I'll give you a little bit. My dad grew up in Waco, Texas during segregation. So the my grandmother's parents were slaves. So in Waco, Texas, you were not, if you were a Black person, you were not birthing at nobody's hospital. There was no hospital near you. So my grandmother was with folks from birth to the grave. My dad didn't even see a real doctor until he went to the military when he was 19 years old. So that's the folks that I come from. And just generations of folks in this space. Even growing up, my family just showed up when people were pregnant and birthing, even in death, of course. Um, and when I had my oldest son, who will be 18 next month, uh, I gave birth and I had community. Folks were around me. And then going out into the world and being my own adult, recognizing that that was not common. It was mind blowing to me that that wasn't a part of the continuum, right? And I still didn't want to do it, actually. I actually stayed away from birth work specifically for a long time. And then 8 years ago, my best friend, who's also one of my birth partners in the Bay Area, she gave birth to my god baby, Ajani. And I said, okay, I think I can do this. And that was kind of all she wrote. I started practicing in Oakland. I am from Oakland, California. Oakland folks can't wait to tell you we're from Oakland, so I have to throw that in there. But I am from Oakland, California. And there is something about that place that kind of breeds the community feel, the advocacy, the honoring the spaces that we create in a real way. And I think my work is a direct reflection of that. Also, a child of activists as well. And as you can tell, I don't like to talk. No, I love to talk. And, and so I really use this space to continue to advocate for us. We know the mortality rates. We know all that stuff. And folks still deserve doulas and an empowering birth, full stop. No matter what the system's doing, because we can't keep centering the system. What are we doing to make sure that we have these spaces? And not just the spaces, the mindset, the people to support us. Even doulas need community. We cannot do these in silos. And that in and of itself is resistance.
Thank you, Andrea. And it's interesting the connections that we have with people once we start talking to each other. My family's also from small towns in Texas, and I had the pleasure of living in Joshua, Texas, which is not very dissimilar to Waco. And it was still, and I was one of 3 Black people. There were, my mom's white, and so there were 2 Black boys who I knew, and they dressed up like Michael Jackson with their Michael Jackson jackets, and then there was me. And so I think about these communities, and I say that because these rural areas, right? They're very distant, and not much has changed, to be perfectly honest. So now we're in a situation where, even if you're Black or you're white, you're very disconnected in many areas of this country, and sometimes in very urban centers we've talked about. So the very hyper urban to the hyper rural, you don't have a lot of access to resources that are with you. And at the event you and I attended, that theme that I loved was a doula on every block, right? We talked about a doula on every block. And currently, as you said, the infant mortality statistics are still alarming because this is preventable, right? We have evidence that in certain other countries, of course, even places like Cuba, they don't have as high infant and maternal mortality rates that we do. And furthermore, in the United States, and LA County's data matches, really mirrors the national data, Black women and babies are 3 to 4 times more likely to die. And so when you look at these statistics around, the deaths during childbirth, infant and maternal mortality, unfortunately, Black women and babies are disproportionately represented. Right. So as we talk about infant and maternal mortality, and at Rising Communities, we plan to tackle this. We plan to end it by 2050. That's our goal. I believe in big goals, not as scared to take on, something challenging, because we have to do more than just address and educate and provide access. We need to be committed to ending this for all families. Right, for all families. And of course, being focused on Black infant and maternal mortality as a major leading and lagging indicator allows us to see, hey, if we can stop that, we can pretty much eliminate this problem for everyone, right? And so what are some of the myths out there around using doulas? Because you don't hear people talking about their doula on a regular basis, right? So that's the purpose today, is to get people comfortable and confident about the role of the doula. Now, you've given us a wonderful historical basis, right? This isn't something that was made up yesterday. This is something that's been happening organically in our communities out of a need. Now we've, evolved into the formality of doulas. Now you can get reimbursed by California if you use a doula, through Medi-Cal as an example. Medi-Cal will pay for that doula to be with you for that full spectrum work. Tell us what would prevent someone from using a doula? How do we help people be welcomed into this practice and to see it as a way to protect themselves and their child at the start of their lives together?
First thing, there's a myth that a doula is for affluent folks and affluent folks only. That's not true. It's actually the opposite. Another one that's coupled with that is doulas only support you in home births. That's not true. There are some doulas that specifically specialize in home births and don't want to go to hospitals, but I am one of the doulas among many that support folks within the hospital system, as well as home births and at birth centers. There are also doulas that support folks with free birth. That is a choice and an option. We believe in choices as doulas. And it leads me to this other myth that we tell you what to do. Our job is to empower your choices, right? We know knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. A lot of us have heard that. But what does it mean to walk into a hospital and know that even if you're crowning, at least in California, you can walk out, right? that information, I'm not telling folks to do that. Please be clear. But what I am saying is it's empowering to be able to know that you don't have to tolerate folks treating you in any kind of way, ignoring you, passing over, leaving all levels of respect out of the conversation and talking to you like you are not a participant in your care. And so doulas, at least in my opinion, our job is to advocate for your empowerment. And that means having real conversations around the possibilities to get you ready, a lot of prepping. You can show up as a doula at a birth, but I think we're most successful when we get into your pregnancy with you, when we've had weeks to talk and build rapport. This is a relationship. We have to build a relationship. And every doula is not for everybody. So interviewing a doula that you connect with, that can level with you, that you can level with them, that you feel comfortable enough with to build that relationship, because that also affects not only your pregnancy, but the experience in your labor.
So on that note, just to continue on that, Andrea, what are some of the common fears? What are some of the common fears that women may have about working with you?
The first thing, and it's always on my intake, Black, brown, white, I do not want to die. That is number one every time I talk to anybody. And I want to kind of go back to what we were talking about, those maternal health rates. Black and brown women are those 3 to 4 times more likely. It doesn't mean that it's not happening to our white counterparts, right? So it's happening to them, and then it's happening to us 3 to 4 times more. And then there's the intersections of our folks that are gender nonconforming, that are on the spectrum of the LGBTQ plus spectrum, that also intersect with that identity and it's not being reported. So if I had to guess, I think it's even more when we talk about those intersections, right? What was your question
Common
again?
fears, and as you said, yeah.
Oh, fears. Yes, sorry. So the death part, right? Then there's the pain. I'm going to be in so much pain. I'm going to be excruciating pain. That's one. And that's pretty normal. I think anybody going into birth, however you decide to birth, in being in fear, that is there. And it's mainly because of our visuals on TV and social media about what birth is. Social media's gotten better with what birth is, but when we watch movies and whatnot, it's like your water breaks and I'm in labor. That's just not how it works. Yeah. It takes time for your body to get ripe in those spaces. Another fear is just having a lot of interventions and being afraid of those interventions and not understanding where they come in. Because it's not so much that you can't have interventions. You want to be informed every step of the way. You don't want to be coerced. Folks want to feel like they are part of the process. And a lot of us, especially Black and brown folks, have been conditioned in these settings with the power dynamic. So we get in the room and we're nodding our head yes, when really we don't understand, or we're just coming in like we just trust it. And it's not so much that folks are being malicious towards you in that space. It is protocol that they're following in hospital settings specifically. And then you add all the isms that come with it, right? But at a very low level baseline, that's what we're looking at. And then the last part is they're going to make the wrong decision for their baby. And that's a huge, and that makes sense. And the way we get around that, I use the BRAINS framework. It's not mine. Birth workers use it everywhere. Anytime something comes up, I don't care if it's just they're taking your blood pressure. The BRAINS framework. What is the benefits? What are the risks? What are your alternatives? What are the benefits and risks of the alternatives? What's your intuition telling you? And then the last one, which is really important to me, is nothing. What if you do nothing? What if you just wait? Or how much time do we have to make a decision?
Thank you for that, Andrea. It's hard to hear it all and not just think about my own birthing experience. I think about having my sons, and especially my first one, right? When I hear you the fears and you haven't been through it before at all, those are all the major fears, right? Everyone's aware. And back in the day, Hollywood did not make giving birth look dangerous, right? Like, and we know it's dangerous. It was like, folks just look so great. Hair and makeup is done. They look fantastic. Baby just pops out. It's kind of an illusion
Yeah.
back then. And so even
Mhm.
then, as I was having, my baby, and I was very young, I was 21 with my first one. And I didn't have, folks around me who understood that, who could be advocates. It was terribly scary. And
Mhm.
I had gynecologists and obstetricians arguing with each other in the room, asking me questions, and I didn't know how to make the right decisions. It was
Mhm.
terrifying, to be in that
Mhm.
role. Tell me a little bit about, what does your role look like as an advocate in helping a mom, like myself, who was young and didn't know how to answer these questions, didn't know how to slow things down and say, well, maybe I can wait, or maybe I can make these decisions. What is
Mhm.
your role in supporting a mom in her agency, as you describe it? How do you do that as an
Yeah.
advocate, given that you're not an MD, right? You're not an
Mhm.
obstetrician or a gynecologist, and these systems
Mhm.
do a great
Mhm.
job of saying things like, well, I'm smarter than you. I know better.
Mhm.
You just need to listen to
Mhm.
me, when what we're trying to instill in women, especially expectant moms, is that they are the
Mhm.
experts in them. They are the experts in their
Mhm.
body. They do
Mhm.
have the right to make decisions about their baby,
Mhm.
right? How do you help with
Yeah.
that?
Um, First, I'd invite us to think about and change our mind around
Mhm,
labor being dangerous.
mhm,
It's sacred.
that's right.
We treat it like that, right? Because danger now invites the idea that we don't know what's going to happen and we're just kind of in the dark. That's just not true. There's so many ways doulas support families, and it's per person. It's going to look different for everybody. But at a very low level baseline, it's understanding that it doesn't have to be dangerous. It doesn't. It starts with a really clear understanding of your body. Here's a diagram. This is the baby. This is your uterus. This is the umbilical cord. Here's what's happening to your body. Here's your pelvic floor. Here are the muscles that are connected. This is what happens. Your mouth is also connected to your pelvic floor. So if you're clenched like this and you want to get a baby out, we might have, it's counterproductive, right? um, Talking about those things that might come up, like belly birth or C-section. Doulas do help folks have less C-sections, but sometimes that's the way the baby decides to come. Sometimes babies are transverse or straight across, so their butt is one end to the other across your belly. You cannot birth a baby that way, right? Or you have a placenta previa, and that means your placenta is blocking the birth canal. You cannot birth a baby that way, right? It is very dangerous for the birthing person. And so it's having those conversations early and often, and not being positive for the sake of being positive. You can introduce a subject and it not be scary and still be honest, right? The same way we can be honest and not be mean, we can be honest and not try to sugarcoat something so much where folks don't actually understand. And as doulas, that's our job. Our role is to make sure you understand. And there's a caveat though. I happen to usually have type A queens that come see me.
Mhm.
They want to know everything. I want to know all the steps. I
I
want to know how I can do all the
resemble that
things. When's the
comment.
baby coming? Let me try. Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
we're just on baby's time. But there are things that you can control, like you getting
Mhm.
rest, like you actually resting. And rest is different from sleep. It's completely different. They do different things. And that practice of breathing a certain way, moving a certain way, is a mindset shift when all of us are, you know, working 2 and 3 jobs, or we have other kids at home, or these other responsibilities, or the pressures of the world on us. Finding these moments are important because they'll also be important in labor. It'll help you stop, slow down, and think. And as doulas, while you're in labor, you're not going to be thinking. We want you in the universe, in orbit. We want you out of your body so you can just stay in the flow of labor. And so we hold the room. So partners there or a family member is there to help ask the questions, to help move you around, to really make sure that we're advocating for a birth that is full. It isn't just immediate, let's do the things. I tell my families all the time, if there's an emergency in the hospital while you're birthing, they will be rolling you down the hospital hallway so fast and throwing paperwork at you,
Yeah.
you will know it's an emergency. So unless it's there, you have a moment to say, can we have some time? I need to think about it. Or a little trick, whether you're religious or not, we need to pray on this to get people out of the room so that you can discuss what's going on. And when you have a doula, you're talking to someone that's experienced. And if they don't know something, good doulas have community. So like that event we went to, we are all connected. Hey, this came up. What do you think? What can we do? I tried these things. This didn't work, right? Oh, another doula, a senior doula will come and say, hey, this actually, you might want to try this because that might be counterintuitive for whatever that person's going through. Great, cool. Oh, great, that worked, right? Or, hey, I'm feeling tired. I need a little encouragement. And so we're bringing that back into the room with the person that's birthing because those fears do come up. That's very natural. But working with us prior will prepare you for the moment. And then while we're there, we're also reminding, oh, is that someone will say, hey, do you want an epidural? You're not ready for an epidural, but they keep asking. And sometimes it triggers in folks' mind, oh, I must need to do it because they keep asking. No, they're just going through protocol. So I will say, hey, did you want them to keep reminding you about the epidural or will you let them know? Right? And I'm talking to my client, not the hospital staff. Right. And we're talking about hospitals specifically. All this stuff doesn't necessarily happen at home in birth centers, to be fair. But it's a practice, right? And again, that brains framework, benefits, risk, alternatives. What does your intuition say? What if you do nothing? You can do that at any point, and it invites the staff supporting you to slow down and explain. And it takes away the pressure of knowing all the questions to ask. That framework will get you there every time. And you ask until you're clear. So as a doula, I'm going to say, hey, do you understand what they need? Do you need a moment to kind of process? Right? I'm going to invite you into decision making and remind you, because obviously you're distracted with birth, as you should be. So we might need a minute to think about what you want to do, what your options are, and what next steps are. And I think that provides more of an inviting space, and that type of advocacy is what improves birth outcomes. It doesn't mean that you won't pivot. It doesn't mean you go in and say, I want a natural birth and I don't want to have any interventions, and you failed because you got an epidural. No, that's just the way that your labor went. So now what are we going to do with the information?
Man, I wish I had a time machine. Hopefully they'll have one soon, like I needed you in that room, like every step I'm just getting upset,
Yeah.
I'm up here getting mad, I'm just like, man, where was my doula
Listen.
when I needed her? So that's why I'm here, because I do understand the value of that. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to come back to appreciating your reframing of danger to sacredness, right? I'm going to come back to that because I think it's important for us to reimagine motherhood. And that's a part of that, right? That's a part of that reimagining. Is this a
Huge
sacred practice, and all the reasons why we need to invest more time, resources, and intention into how that process happens for all of us, for all mothers, all women who are keeping humans on the planet at this moment, right? Like if we're populating the earth, I keep saying, I think we should take that a little more seriously, right? So that said, I'm just going to say Hollywood has turned around. And if you have not been watching birthing on Hollywood these days, I pay attention to this stuff because I'm a geek. Game of Thrones killed it for me. I mean, they made it clear that having birth is not fun. And it is not what you've seen 30 years ago. And in some ways, I've appreciated that. I do think as I watch Hollywood, it is a great reflection of society and how we're starting to, really be more authentic to some degree in some of the experiences that
Mm-hmm.
women have, right? Because Hollywood has
Mm-hmm.
been one of those places
Yeah.
where when we're looking for what to expect in life, we have all these misconceptions because, we think everything is through this lens. And growing up, we do that, right? We do that. And so
Yeah.
what I've noticed now is there's a lot more authenticity, probably because of social media and the internet. Wasn't
Mm-hmm.
around when I was born.
Yeah.
So when I look at that, I'm like, wow, this is way different. If I was growing up
Mm-hmm.
watching this, I would have had a very different perspective on it, and had a lot more
Mm-hmm.
questions, right? And
Yeah.
been more concerned about how it was going to look and be, because I do think there's more access. So I would love for you to describe, what does full spectrum doula look like, so that people understand how much value and support they can get through their birthing experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So full spectrum is um, fertility, pregnancy, labor, delivery, postpartum, which I would even argue in the birth continuum is probably the most important. That's also where we see the most
Mm-hmm.
mortality rates, is in postpartum. Loss, termination, um, and
Andrea, just
infertility.
to pause you, tell us the length of time though. If you have full spectrum doula services, how long do we get to
Mhm.
work with you?
Well, it depends, right? Some folks don't experience infertility. So we might be with you. As a full spectrum doula, I can be with you from fertility, us trying to get pregnant, all the options. You get pregnant, then I'm with you from that point, and then I'm with you for postpartum. For me, postpartum, I try not to go longer than 3 or 4 months with the family. Um, but time, it
So it
really
sounds like we're
depends.
looking at,
It depends on when someone
a
sees me.
range. Why don't you give people a range so they kind of have that number? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can have a doula for anywhere from 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
significant, because I often believe,
Hmm.
especially even for me, your mind just sort of goes to the birth, right? The doula's with me at the birth, and maybe a little bit before, but this notion that you're there from 6 months up to a year is amazing,
Hmm.
right? That is an incredible amount of time
Yeah.
to teach me about my body, to talk to me about what's happening at each stage, to unpack my doctor visits, and I can ask questions. Do you accompany
Exactly.
people on doctor's visits as a part of that?
I can. Yes, I have done that before. When you're birthing in an area for a little while, doctors start to know you, so you almost don't have to go as often, but I have gone and continue to go. But it's up to my client's discretion. Sometimes they just let their doctor know they're having a doula and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we show up at the birth. Um, but yeah, again, it's up
Okay.
to them.
How do you, through that experience, because we've talked a lot about how you work with the mom, how do you interact with family members, which I can imagine
Ah, what
must
a
be
great
quite
question.
interesting?
So So the way that even in birth, so we talk a lot about birth, we focus on birth as, folks think about birth with doulas, but our work is also in postpartum. We are also planning and helping you plan in for postpartum as best as we can. So I have a postpartum workbook. And here's the saying that I tell my families all the time. Just because you had a baby does not mean your house turns into a petting zoo. Anybody coming to your house in postpartum should be doing something to make your life easier before they hold the baby. And if they're holding the baby, it's for you to go shower, eat, have a moment to yourself. Um, Postpartum is very important. When folks have partners in this space, we are sitting down talking about family members, how this is going to intersect in this space. And more importantly, will you have support in those folks? Because that also determines where I'll fit in as your postpartum doula to support you. If family is involved, which does happen, I invite them to one or two of the prenatal sessions so that they understand what I do. What often comes up too is folks is like, why do you need a doula? I've birthed 5 babies before. You don't need a doula. And it's like, they might. If their experience is, sometimes folks are too close to you to be able to take their experience off and be your doula. And I just want to add this, being a mother does not automatically qualify someone to be your doula, right? Because folks bring their experiences on you. How many times have we heard someone say they're pregnant and then everybody's telling them their terrible stories, right? And so we try to fend that off in that space as much as we can. I'm sorry, my dog is losing it.
I'm watching my
Casey,
family's about to
go
come
to
through
your
the
bed.
door. So there'll be all kinds of things happening.
Bed. Go. Sorry. It's distracting me. I'm a neurospicy person, so that was like killing me. But and really getting a plan together. Like, how are we going to navigate family at the birth? How are we going to navigate family at home? How long are we going to wait before certain visitors come over? And what visitors can come over because we know that they are going to be helpful. We're not entertaining in postpartum. That's how. Because you're going to be with a diaper on from your belly button to your tailbone.
One moment. That's what I mean. They're banging on the door. They have no keys. I'll be right there.
Oh, no, please, go ahead. I still can't see you.
All right. I'm back.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You said something a moment ago about not everyone is a doula, right? And so
Yes.
say a little bit about what does it take in this day and age, right? Because we know this is historical, right? This is grounded in tradition, and now we have systematized it a bit. What does that look like? What does it mean to become a doula? How do you get certified? What are some of the things that you're learning in that process?
Okay. So I'm going to share my own unpopular opinion. I don't speak for all doulas. Let me just say that. In my experience, the best doulas are the ones that show up, that are empowering your decisions, and can support you and have built a relationship enough to kind of notice when they need to step in with you directly. They don't teach you that when you're getting your certification. It's not going to come in certification. So someone having a certification is not a direct indication of being a great doula or a good doula or whatever. You need a willing participant, someone that's going to be able to take out their own personal experiences, hold them because they're important. They help inform. It's a part of us. You can't ignore them, but also have a filter system where you are reminding yourself that this is their person, their body, their baby, their partner, their experience. And so as you built that rapport up with someone, you're able to continue to kind of navigate that space as a doula and holding space. I think the best doulas have community. I think when you do birth work in a silo, you can get burnt out, which actually happens. That's why I mentor doulas a lot, because it can feel really isolating on these different spectrums, and it's a lot of emotion happening in this space. That goes back to the phrase sacred, or the word sacred that I used. It's a lot that's happening in this space, and you being it's almost like you're a spy. You're here like paying attention, taking note, noticing this, noticing that. How am I going to show up for this person? How does this person need it? I spoke to a doula last week, and she specifically wants to support and does support families that are differently abled. And the ways that she was explaining what's important and the way she wants to be able to support these folks was mind-blowing. And I'm Miss Doula, right? I have full spectrum, all that stuff. But she came with a perspective that I hadn't even considered in this space, right? And is that less important? No. That's why I'm trauma-informed centered, because if we start at a base level, it covers everybody. Now, that may not be everybody's practice, But I think on a very generic level, the doula depends on the person's needs. It's not a one size fits all. That's why interviewing doulas is important. And for all the aspiring doulas out there, you should also be interviewing your clients. If you're new in this space, you're also going to have to figure it out. It's going to take a little bit of time to figure out what type of client you want to have. I've met prison doulas. They never thought that they would be doing it, but they're killing it in that space. And they're dealing with not only the pressures of labor and delivery, we're talking about system on top of system on top of system, supporting someone birth the baby that they won't even be able to keep or hold for a long time, right? So it depends on the doula, but I will say that doulas should not be telling you what to do. They should be empowering your decisions. They want to participate, whether they've had one birth, two births, zero births before you. You got to be able to trust them in this process because you all will be lockstep. And that's more important than getting 1,000 certifications.
Wonderful. So maybe tell us, about how, when you are encountering a difficult situation, and I think that's what people, you have a doula to help mitigate, right? To help prevent, having negative situations or things like that, right? It's to me, it's sort of like a little bit of a security, like I'm going to make sure I have a team. I'm going to prepare myself for this extremely monumental event that's happening in my life.
Yep.
So I can prevent, having any ish, right? Like we can't be 100%, but having a doula is, it's a nice bit of insurance and security and guidance. But let's talk about, when something does happen, right? And let's get a little real, talk a little bit about, okay, everything isn't going perfect. And you do have to be like, we need time to pray, Can you give us a little bit of some insight into how have you experienced that? And how did you handle it?
I fend off the going wrong with the idea that anything can happen. And there have been moments in my career that scared the life out of me. And when those moments, so I'll give you an example. I had a family, we were birthing, everything was fine. It was, staff was supportive. Everything leading up to this point was great. She had a couple interventions, but nothing crazy. She had the baby. And then I noticed she started to lose consciousness. So what happens sometimes with labor, you can start to lose too much blood, right? A hemorrhage is what we're talking about. And I have a partner on the other side of the room. We got a brand new baby over here. And when I'm noticing this, I'm looking at the nurse and I'm like, hey, and she was like, I know. So I'm talking to my client and the nurse, and I was like, can you tell the dad to go grab the baby, right? So they're just doing their normal stuff. Baby's fine, beautiful, perfect. And I'm like, hey, talk to me. How'd you feel about your birth, right? Everything in my body is like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this cannot happen to me. This cannot happen in my birth. I can't do this, but I'm also recognizing I have a partner in the room with a brand new baby. They got family, literally, like no joke, 8 different family members downstairs. And I went back to my training. What do you do in those moments? And it was just like me grabbing her hand. How are you feeling? She's like, I've kind of like barely talking. And the doctors are working on her. The nurse is giving her, what they call it? Is it epinephrine? I think that's it. They're pumping that through so they can kind of get the bleeding to stop, and also Pitocin. So they're putting a bolus in at the same time and staying grounded. So this also, shout out to my therapist, this also might be a trauma response. I'm real good in chaos. So in those moments, I'm coming all the way down and I'm talking and we're walking through the steps. Hey, what do you see up top? What do you see down below? Call out the things you see in the room. Take a breath. Can you breathe for me? Right? These things that we do when folks are having panic attacks or anxiety or whatever to help them stay conscious, to keep that blood flow going in this particular moment, and stay the course, not give up, not freak out. It's not the time to freak out when something is on the horizon. It's really when we lean in. And because we built a relationship, I'm just talking about whatever we talked about prior in that moment, to keep her conscious and keep her in the moment, right? And also for her not to freak out, right? Because I'm losing consciousness and I just had a baby. I want to hold my baby, right? And at that moment, she couldn't. You're talking about birthing a baby on her chest for whatever, and then she's starting to lose consciousness. So now we're having to shift really quickly and also checking in on partner at the same time. Hey, how's the baby doing? Right? Staying aware, calm, and responsible. That is the key in moments where things change. I've had emergency C-sections happen. As we've done all the things, we did everything right. Boom, the decelerated heart rate. They're busting in the room. They're moving her around. It's not happening. We're taking her to surgery right now. We're just rolling out of the room. So I'm running down the hall with her, freaking out. I'm like, we talked about this. Remember, it's a real emergency. You're going to be okay. You didn't fail. We did everything we're supposed to do. You got this. I'm right here. Right? Like really being reassuring and being in it with them. It's not your birth, but this is your people. They chose you to be in this moment. And so that sacredness, going back to that, that's an example of why it's sacred, so that they're not feeling alone, even in the moments where things get hectic. Does this happen often? No. Those two instances, as long as I've been birthing for the last 8 years, I've only had 4 instances where things went extremely awry, right? But I still remember them. I remember how I felt when I got home. I remember how I felt like I just didn't want to talk to anybody, because you are also holding the room outside of your own body. You're just holding the room in those spaces, and it matters to show up for your birthing folks, but also eventually you're going to come down off of that, and you need to take care of yourself so you can continue to show up.
Wow. I was just getting chills, when you were talking about that whole situation, and thinking to myself, if you weren't there, it would just be a bunch of screaming family members, right? They'd be like, oh my God, she's passing out.
Everybody
She's
losing their
dying.
mind,
Oh
right?
my God. Right? They're like, oh my God. That's all I could think, right? It was
Right.
just like,
Right.
that's what most of us do, because this is your blood, or this is your family. You're not a doula. You're not a doctor,
Absolutely.
and these
Yeah.
systems are very intimidating too. So sometimes they're either going between panic or anger, right? Like, what did you do to her?
Right.
What's happening?
Do something. Do
Yeah. So I'm just
something.
like,
Yeah.
because when you're talking about there's 8 family members downstairs, and I'm like, yeah, and they're going to be mad. They're going to be coming up them stairs if this doesn't go right, right? So I'm just, I mean,
Yeah.
but to hear
Yeah.
that value, and that's why I wanted to bring us into the room. I wanted you to tell us a story about that, because that, especially as women who have given birth, when we're talking about doulas and we're talking about this process, at the end of the day, we're all obsessed with that moment, of what is happening in that room. And I think you said it so well, Andrea, about how, yes, if something happens, one of your roles is to bring it down, to assure that mother leaves that hospital with her baby, right? And that piece right there is the most valuable piece of information I want all the moms to hear, because that is the moment that all of us don't want to fear. We don't want to fear. We want to know that no matter what happens, we've got folks around us who are going to bring that temperature down, who are going to assure that all those steps are happening so that we leave that hospital with our baby. So I want to thank you for really painting that picture for us. And, as we start to wind this down, I want to come back to where we started. I want to come back to the legacy and the history of this sacred practice, and what you see as the vision moving forward for this legacy. How would you like to see, this process of getting
No
a
pressure.
doula on every block, right? What are your words of inspiration to not only inspire folks to
Mhm.
participate in this sacred practice while they're birthing, but perhaps even to think about becoming a doula? Because in order for us to have a doula on every block, we're going to need more folks to become a part of that
Yeah.
sacred practice.
Mm, that's a big question. Um, well, first, I'll say this: birth work is not a trend. I know that we're seeing it more on social media, and it feels more accessible, and it should feel more accessible because that's what we need. Um, where I caution us is to expect system integration and for us to maintain the level of sacredness we can hold. And so there will need to be a balance. Even the event that we went to last Thursday talked about what it means to be integrated in these systems. We've seen what happens when midwives are integrated into the medical system. They lose the advantage of having that one-to-one support. And again, balance is important. I think it's super helpful that we're seeing Medi-Cal being covering doula support, and now we're starting to see private insurances covering doula support services, through postpartum even, which is so amazing. And shout out to the women that are doing that amazing work. The other part to that is everybody needs to be involved. I don't care if you don't ever want to have a child. I don't need you to. You need to know because somebody is going to have a baby, right? Even men, you may not ever have a baby, but you should know.
And
You
we
should
were all
know.
born.
Hello. So we all know somebody that's pregnant, had a baby, or experience anything on the birth continuum. We all should know because the more of us that know and the more we can share information, the brains framework, I said that 3 or 4 times today. We could use that framework in any medical system that we're in, right? Whatever the diagnosis, we can use the brains framework to slow down and ask the questions until you understand. And that's what this space is about being a participant in your care. You're not a bystander. For new doulas, find community. You cannot sustain long term by yourself. You're going to need it in some way, whether it's a backup doula, whether it's advice, which leads me to this other part that I'm starting to see more of. Becoming a doula is not your next lick. It's not a get rich quick scheme. I'm seeing doulas do these like setups and MLMs where it's kind of like you get a doula and you come work underneath me and then you get more doulas. No, that is not what that is supposed to
Oh my
be.
goodness. Okay.
Community is cyclical. It's cyclical. We're giving. And sometimes what I give is going to be different from what you give, but it doesn't make our giving less valuable. We're so trained to be transactional. Well, you did this and I did this or this. And it's like, yes, and I'm me. You'll never be me. And I'm never going to be you. So where do we meet? Right? I just talked about a doula that I talked about who is focusing on disabilities. That is so far outside of my wheelhouse, but it inspired me to be more curious about that. That's what being in community is about. So then if I have a client that comes to me and says, hey, my child's going to have a disability, or maybe I have a disability, right? Oh, I know this doula. Let me send you to her. I don't have to take everybody. Everybody's not for me. I know somebody that can specialize in what you need. Shout out to Dana the doula. We've been doing lives all week for Doula World Doula Week. She specializes in working moms and helping them get out of work, go back to work, and transition into work in a real way. That's her sweet spot. Why wouldn't I direct somebody to them? And so as newer doulas are coming into this space, please understand that there is strength in numbers, and we have to stop centering the system that's already working. It's working exactly how it's supposed to work. The only way that we'll be able to buck whatever trends or whatever is to stop centering what's not working there and start centering what does work for us in this space and the families we say we care about. Full stop.
Thank you for that, Andrea. And I think that is one of the messages we continue to advance around reimagining motherhood is how do we take care of each other? You know, at its basic, you know, idea is, especially the legacy of doula work is about taking care of each other, right? In the community,
Yep.
in the places that we dwell with the people who are our neighbors,
right at home,
that we go to school with. How do we take care of each other, right?
Can I add something to that? There was someone that said something, it's real easy to imagine a beautiful life somewhere else. It's a lot harder to reimagine right where you're at.
Yes.
And that's what this work is.
Yes. I don't think I could have said anything better than that. You know, we are going to wrap up, and I am so appreciative of everyone who has joined us. I'm going to shout out to Miroslava again for putting this together and being so inspired by all the wonderful folks that we met at the event last week. I want folks to stay tuned because we mean what we say, and I do what I mean, which is we're going to end infant and maternal mortality by 2050. So you all stay tuned. We'll be having more activities, and I'm going to get better at social media because that's how we have to spread the word and make sure that we're connected and continuing to advance in this, you know, beautiful mission and this beautiful work together. So again, thank you, everybody. Lastly, Andrea, how do we get in contact with you if we want to talk to you again?
Wow. You can reach out to me at Andrea@nurtureandflow.com. You can find me Drea Miss Lady here or Nurture and Flow here on Instagram and TikTok. You can always reach me by email or send me a direct message. I may not see it, so don't be mad if it takes me a while to see it. I'd never pay attention to them, but I will now that I've said that. Yeah. Oh, and my website, nurtureandflow.com, and then my nonprofit, birthruckus.org.
That's right. Birth Ruckus. I like it. So you have heard all the ways to reach Andrea. You know, please feel free to reach out to her, ask questions, refer your friends and families. Once she gets filled up, she has a community. She can connect you with other doulas. If you want to know about becoming a doula, you know, reach out. Please feel free to reach out to Rising Communities as well, right here through our Instagram. We're always happy to connect you and, you know, make sure that you get what you need. So thanks, everybody. Yes. Thank you, Andrea, and have a great.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.